Think about it. Think about it. Think about it.
And welcome once again to High School Basketball Weekly. Tim Morey alongside of Rick Bulla. And Rick, what a great week of high school basketball action we had on both the boys and the girls side. This past week was incredible. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty here of the high school basketball season, and we are coming into some really great matchups in league play. And we're going to start off this week with the boys recap and the Mount Greylock Mounties.
The Mounties, Tim, played one game last week and lost it to the Wahconah Warriors. They're playing again. It's probably at least 4 games now without Toby Fail, their leading scorer. Coach Thistle's had a really, really tough season, and he's trying to get the most out of his kids, but he's getting kids in there that are getting valuable experience. Liam Brady and Mac Wynick each had 9 points in that loss to Wahconah. Greylock stands at 4-9, 1-2 in the league, and hopefully Toby will get back. It's a senior year. Western Mass looks like it may not happen this year for the Mounties, Tim, but I'd really like to see Toby get back. Kids are only kids once.
Right,
so.
Right, and he's such a big part of that squad. And I know Coach Thistle, even though he was really in a rebuilding mode this year, he was looking at a point of view of, he had a tough hill to climb. Monument Mountain looked like they were in real good position this year with a lot of returning players. But he looked like a chance that he thought he could finish second in that league and qualify for Western Massachusetts. But with those injuries, it just doesn't look like it's going to be that way. McCann, however, continues to move along nicely for their division, Rick.
Yeah, McCann is currently 9-5 overall, 3-1 in Franklin West. They on the 30th, right after this show, I'll be going down to cover the game down at McCann, Tim, between Bay State and the McCann Tech Hornets. Bay State took the first game down there earlier this season by about 12 or 13 points, but McCann stuck right with them. It's going to be for first place. As I said, McCann comes in, I believe, I said 3-9. They may be 4-1 in the Franklin West, and Bay State's 5-0. So it should be a good one. Looking forward to it. They beat St. Mary's last week, and 87-47. Jeremy Beanie with 18. A lot of kids in double figures.
Right.
Darian Tavani, 15. Bruce Davis, 14. And sophomore Jackson Owensby, who's getting a lot of playing time right now for Coach. Drew a blank here. Chris Bullitt.
Chris Bullitt,
poor
right.
Chris, with 12. And says, again, hosting Bay State. So things are looking pretty good. They're kind of like where they were last year.
Right.
And, it looks very good for not just the better than 10 wins, Tim, but also first or second in the Tri-County North.
And again, we've talked about on numerous occasions at this point in the year, it looks like McCann, they're going to clearly qualify for Western Mass in Division 4. They want to get as far up that ladder as possible so that they can potentially get an opening round home game, which would be really great for them, and also avoid some of the stronger teams down the road. So for the McCann Hornets, that's got to be on their mind.
Yeah, they did play one home game last year, Tim, so I think they want to do it even a step better. I believe they played Hamden Charter in a game that we covered, and then had the task of taking on number 1 Hopkins at the time. But again, good season going on for Coach Bullitt.
And of course, last week, Northern Berkshire Community Television was live at Hoosick Valley to cover the rivalry matchup between the Blue Devils and the Hurricanes from Hoosick Valley. And of course, Drury also had some games, a big game early in the week with Monument Mountain, Rick, and that was a big win for them.
Yeah, the little road trip. They had to go to Great Barrington, and of course played Hoosick, and the game most recently with Taconic was canceled because of the storm, but they were able to beat a little understaffed Monument Mountain team, 78-56. Pulling to win the second half. Scott McGuire with 33, Reese Reset with 23. You've heard a lot. I was going to say that a lot this year, and that's exactly the way it's going to be almost every game. And then, of course, they won the big showdown at Hoosick, the first showdown anyway, 75-43 with McGuire leading the way with 27 and Reset chipping in with 19.
Yeah, we did that game live for Northern Berkshire Community Television, and Drury really showed off their balance in scoring. And, of course, it goes really through 2 players, and we've talked about them all year, Rick, and that's Scott McGuire and Reese Reset. And here you can see McGuire both from the perimeter and taking it hard to the basket. You see him here on a nice steal and length of the court layup, but he had an excellent game tonight.
Yeah, he did. He comes to play all the time, and we've been talking about him for this is the third year now. He actually sat out the first half of his freshman year, and then everybody noticed him in the second half, the next 10 games. But he's got the inside-outside game, Tim. He's got a nice jump shot, and he's got a real nice drive to the hoop, and a nice spin move. He's just a scorer. And Coach Reset really likes kids that look to score, especially when they're open.
Right, and that is a lethal combination because if you try to concentrate on McGuire, Reset will kill you. If you try to concentrate on Reset, McGuire just has that ability to score both inside and outside. So it makes the Blue Devils a very difficult defensive matchup.
Yeah, very much. Those are the two kids that handle the ball most often. Those are the kids that Coach Reset wants the ball in their hands. That's the reason why they're the 1 and 2 scorers. But again, beating a dead horse. Coach Reset has said over and over again, it can't be that, especially come crunch time, especially in the Northern games, and especially also when Western Mass comes. So they're always looking for somebody else to score. It doesn't have to be double figures all the time, but we got to get somebody else into the mix. But that was a good week for Drury, that's for sure.
Right, and just on the opposite side, Hoosick Valley, the Hurricanes, had a tough week. Of course, the loss to Drury 75-43, and they also stubbed their toe at home to Cardinal Spellman. They dropped that one 75-67. So they've been stuck on 5 wins for a while. Their record now 5-8, and if they're gonna think about qualifying for Western Mass, they're going to have to make up some ground in a real hurry here.
Yeah, and it's really tough. Isaiah Stubbs is giving him scoring, and Coach Hart always gets somebody else in the mix, Tim, and we've said this all season long too on this program. One night it might be Sam Larrabee, it might be John Kroll, it might be either Carson or Casey Meswar. They do have kids that can step up, but it needs to be pretty consistent anyway.
Right.
But playing that North, that's one of the toughest conferences in all Western Massachusetts, as far as I'm concerned, is Berkshire North.
Right. Night in and night out, when you get into league play in the North, it's just a bear for you because you're going to run up against Taconic and Pittsfield, who play, in Division II. Then you've got Drury and Wacona, and they are no slouches by any stretch of the imagination. So you've got in the North Division 4 of the 5 teams that look like they're going to easily qualify for the Western Mass tournament, Rick, and it just makes it very, very difficult.
Yeah, junior Isaiah Stubbs, as we just saw in all that footage, is just having a very, very steady year, and my hat's off to him too, because word around the area was that Isaiah got injured in practice the night before,
right,
and was doubtful, and played, and I thought that was wonderful. My hat's off to him for getting out on that floor and doing the very best he could with his Hurricane squad that night.
Yeah, there was no question, Rick, that he was not 100%
right.
on that night.
Right.
He was playing on an injured ankle, but our hats off to him. He's a real competitor, and he stayed with it and gave an all-out effort, and he played a lot of minutes in that game trying to keep Hoosick Valley in it. But this Blue Devil team was too much for him on this night, and they walked away with the easy win. And, of course, that leads us, Rick, to our boys player of the week. And this week it's Blue Devil Reese Reset who gets the honor as player of the week.
Yeah, Reese was the recipient of that honor a couple times last year and the first time this year. But we've got so many kids, Tim, week to week that you and I discuss. But 23 down at Monument, 19 versus Hoosick. And Reese is very, very quietly, putting some points on the board. His leadership, his quarterbacking of that team means so much to Drury, and it's going to mean so much the second half of the season, the latter half of the season, of course, going into Western Mass. But he's also, on the very quiet side, getting very, very close to a school record up there, held by for the boys, Glenn Tatro, for the girls, Taylor DeSanti. And, I know Reese is just a competitor, and he's got that Bill Belichick theory of, one game at a time, and he gets ready for that one game. He's not thinking about individual accomplishments or feats, but nevertheless, hopefully towards the latter end of the season or in postseason, he will get to that plateau.
And the thing about Reese, we've watched him now for 4 years, Rick, and the thing about him is not only does he score the basketball, he sets up the offense, he's an excellent passer, he's a very good rebounder for his size, and he's an excellent defender. So he's the complete package as a basketball player for the Blue Devils, and of course he gives 100% on the floor when he's out there. So it really well-deserved Player of the Week award to Reese Reset.
Yeah, if you asked him what he could do better in his game, he might tell you the jump shot.
Right.
He does everything so well. But he knocked down a couple of jumpers in the Hoosick Valley game. So when he starts hitting jump shots, 15-footers, three-pointers, he's even more deadly.
No question about it. On the girls' side of the action this week, it's been a great week for girls basketball. And for the Lady Mounties of Mount Greylock, they had a good week all the way around in terms of their action at the Coaches versus Cancer. Rick?
Yeah, well, I got up there, Tim, just at the tail end of that game, and Coach Jacoby's team held on to beat Palmer 30-28. That was the first game of the 6 at Coaches versus Cancer up at Hoosick this past weekend. Maddie Ross was high scorer with only 9 points, but it was a defensive struggle. But that goes to show you the strength of Berkshire County teams, whether Northern Division or Southern Division. They were hoping to pick up a second victory soon after that, but lost a tight one at Lennox, 43-33. Sophomore Delaney Babcock led the way with 11. So he's getting scoring, from different players: Maddie Ross, Maddie Albert, Brooke Massey, and Delaney Babcock. So, the kids that are playing are stepping up, and they're 5-8. Unfortunately, 0-4. It doesn't look like a first or second place finish at this time for Coach Jacoby's team, but the 500% is not out of the question yet.
Right, and he's got good numbers in the program. So he's really, I know, talking to Coach Jacoby, he's really optimistic about the future at Mount Greylock. He has good participation, good numbers. So he thinks things will only get better as time goes on for them. For the McCann girls, the beat goes on for the Lady Hornets, Rick. They're now 9-5.
Yeah, they're 9-5. They're 3-1 in the Franklin West division. They took one on the chin down at Mahar, 61-50. Grace Tyler led the way with 25 points, and sophomore Kaylee Tatro with 11. And they defeated Turner's Falls at home, 51-46, with our former Player of the Week, Izzy Lacasse, chipping in. She's only a freshman with 20 points. Aubrey Tetlow, the senior, with 14, and Grace Tyler with 13. So they're getting some pretty balanced scoring. And we talk about this very often on the show, Tim, about Tatro, Lacasse, and Towler, freshmen and 2 sophomores, where they're getting the bulk of their scoring, and the future is very bright. They're getting great senior leadership with Emma Marino and the Mastery girl, and of course Aubrey Tetlow's chipping in with leadership, points, rebounds, assists, and so on and so on. So they're doing pretty well, and they're still in first place in Franklin West. We'll see what happens. They're also in conference play, so I like their chances right now. The 10 wins is pretty secure. That'll be coming up very shortly.
Right.
But they really want to win that division outright. Last year they tied Smith Academy, and I think they want it on their own this year.
And like their counterparts on the boys' side, Rick, they want to keep winning and keep moving up. They're going to make the tournament. They want to get a good seed, potentially get that home first game at home.
Yeah, that means so much. It's you play the whole season to make the Western Mass tournament, and for some teams that haven't been in for a while, they're very content with going on the road. Just before the Hoosick Valley Hurricanes, many years ago, Tim, when Coach Wojcik his program first took off, they were on the road, and that's when people noticed them. When they won, they made it to the cage after winning every game on the road. But you'd love the home cooking, and they would love nothing better than to get another home game as they did last year.
And there's no question about it. Another team that is rolling right along and on a rise, we talked about it a little bit last week, Rick, the Lady Blue Devils from Drury. They had a tremendous past week.
Yeah, the girls from Drury had a tremendous week. They've won 4 in a row, Tim, after the not heartbreaking, but the loss to their arch rival Hoosick Valley, knocking off Brattleboro, Lennox, and most recently in the Coaches versus Cancer, where you're seeing right now the Devils took down Monument Mountain in a rematch.
Right.
They got beat by the Spartans 65-60 opening night up at the Bucky Village Gym, and they really, really wanted this game again. And Coach Ian Downey really wanted to beat a North team because he played the North so tough. With the exception of the Hoosick game, they were in every game this year. Lost to Wacona in overtime, and he really wanted that game. And his kids are getting better. They're doing the same thing as they did last year. Last year was a little bit different because he was a first-year coach bringing in a new offense and a new defense, and this year he took it a little bit slower. The kids certainly have caught on, but they're getting better. The Blue Devils right now are 8-5 and 4-0 in the South, with a big game coming up in a couple of days against Mount Greylock.
And again, we talked about it last week. You look at the Blue Devils schedule, and you see where they stand. They stand 8-5. They have a shot, and I think it's a realistic shot, to run out the table in the regular season, other than they have the crossover game at the end of the season where the North and South are going to cross over. So they're going to get a tough game lined up there. But they got a shot to win everything the rest of the way, except maybe for one game, and finish on a real strong note. And once again, get a decent seed in that Division III Western Mass field.
Yeah, Tim, they certainly do. Last year they qualified, and the crossover game was against Hoosick Valley, so
Right.
that was a very, very tough one for them. And then, if that wasn't tough enough, they had to go to Greenfield and play the Green Wave. So I think it's going to be a little bit different, and I think you're right. I think Georgie's going to have a better record. They're going to get a better seed, hopefully a home game, and we'll see what happens for there. But Brooke DeJaneiro has been playing exceptional basketball. In the Monument Mountain game, she had 19. And she had 18 in a win over Lee the other night. That was the fourth one I couldn't think of.
Right.
And Tess Zoido had a huge game against Mountain with 17 points. I mean, she plays really hard night in and night out. Scoring is always up and down for Tess, but she always gives you maximum effort. And she knocked down a couple of threes, which you just saw, I think one of at least, and had a great week. But they're getting pretty balanced scoring now also. And yeah, you're right. They do have one game, Tim, down at Wacona also, that rematch. So that's going to say a lot too. But other than that, and not that they can't win that ball game, but I think they got a real good shot of running the table. So
I think they're going to be in every game they play from here on out. I think that's pretty clear. Looking at Hoosick Valley, Coach, really they had one game, but what a game it was. Northern Berks Community Television. This past Saturday was at Hoosick Valley. Rick, you were there as well covering jury and joined us on the Hoosick Valley Medfield broadcast. What a game it was. Hoosick Valley girls took on Medfield, the Warriors, and the Medfield Warriors, I'll tell you, I know we're seeing the boys action here, but we need the Hoosick Valley girls. What a game that was. And we covered it. And I'll tell you, Medfield was a huge team size-wise. They had a center at 6'3". They had a very good forward at 5'11". They had real size along that whole front line. And it was nip and tuck throughout that first half until just at the close of the first half, Kaylee Wynn, just a freshman for Hoosick Valley, the score was tied 30-30. And she was in the game at that point. Allie Mendel had a little bit of foul trouble, and she really lit up the Hoosick Valley arena with a tremendous play.
Snuda. And a long one. It's gone! Kaylee Wynn nails the three from way downtown. And Hoosick Valley will go into the locker room with a 3-point lead.
And, Rick, we saw the game. You joined us at halftime and actually joined us for the second half of that broadcast. And it just seemed like Hoosick Valley came out of that halftime a totally different team. They just were really energized, and it just seemed like they took the game right to Medfield, and Medfield just didn't have an answer.
no, they didn't. And Kaylee Wynn's three was an incredible shot. It was right in front of where I was sitting at the time before I went up to join you. And talk about propel your team. Just a freshman. was a little bit emotionless. I didn't think she knew what she had just accomplished, but that certainly did, Tim. And when those Medfield girls came out, I was watching them in warm-ups, and to me they looked like a Division III women's college basketball team with their appearance and their size.
Right.
We're just not used to see that with the size of their forwards and the ball handling of their and sharpshooting guard they had that knocked down 3 or 4 threes herself in the first half. But Lexi Mercer came out, and that Hurricane team came out, and you're right. They wore them down. They had no answers. They just couldn't keep up. Most of their points of the 30 they scored in the first half was when they were able to break pressure because they had some easy layups and some putbacks. But the Hurricanes just absolutely totally dominated. Probably their best half of the season, I would think.
Right. They went on a 27-5 run in that second half, starting in the third quarter. Of course, Allie Mendel, one of the tri-captains, this event was dedicated to her and her family. Allie, as people know from our broadcast, a cancer survivor in recovery, and some really moving moments in this game. But Allie was all over the floor, got into a little bit of foul trouble in the first half, but contributed 9 points and numerous steals and defensive pressure for the Lady Hurricanes. But the real story for Hoosick Valley was Lexi Mercier. She just exploded in that third quarter with her outside shooting right.
Well, she's got the green light. She's had the green light, Tim, for the 3-ball if she's open since she was a freshman. And she was a little up and down early in the game. Got cold in the second quarter, but really, really lit it up. Now there's a nice shot right there of Lexi taking it to the hoop, which people love to see. But that just those NBA threes that she knocks down, incredible.
Outlandish. She hit 3 3-pointers in a row, and you're kind of seeing them right here. And these shots were just back-breaking shots, and Medfield just had no answer for Mercier. She just got into that zone, and away she went. And just like that, Hoosick Valley exploded, and Medfield was never able to recover after Hoosick Valley went on that run. So hats off to Lexi Mercier, and she just had an outstanding game. Hoosick Valley now 10-1. That victory qualifies them for the Western Massachusetts Division III tournament. So they're going to be in again. And of course, with that effort, Rick, Lexi Mercier is our Girls Player of the Week this week.
Yeah, very, very deserving. I mean, there's a lot of kids out there that had very good weeks, but and sometimes we don't give it to the kids that only had one game, Tim.
Right.
But this was pretty important. This was against a D2 Central Mass school that came in with a very good record, with a very, very good ball club, with size and speed. They're the real deal. But again, you're coming to play Hoosick Valley, and as teams find out, you better be prepared to play when you come to Cheshire and play Coach Wojcik's team. That 27, the majority of those coming in the second half, really, really propelled her team. And I'd like to add just one thing, too, about co-captain Allie Mendel. What an incredible week she had emotionally, because a lot of folks that didn't know about Allie had found out. Of course, we had her on the show last week with Coach Wojcik. She had interviews with iBerkshires, with Mass Live, with the Berkshire Eagle, with a nice write-up the day of the Coaches versus Cancer. So a lot of notoriety and for a very, very quiet young lady, and she handled it very, very well.
Yes, she did. She really did. And before we move on from Hoosick Valley in that game, Rick, I just want to mention another player. It kind of goes, flies under that radar constantly, but she had a tremendous game in that game. It was Riley Robinson. She finished with 15 points in that contest. Numerous rebounds against a much taller team. She was in among the land of the Giants. And she just does all those things, and Coach Wojcik alluded to that in the post-game interview on a couple of the news stations, and she just said she's the engine that makes us go, and she certainly is.
Yeah, she certainly had another incredible game. She's not always looking to score, so you're not always going to see Riley Robinson in double figures. But again, she's out there doing everything else to help her team, and to me, they've got, like, I call them co-quarterbacks. Whether she's handling the ball, Shaylee Levesque's handling the basketball, it's in good hands. And that's all, and of course, she did the same thing with Skylar Case last year. But very, very, very quiet ball player that does her job night in and night out.
Right. And with 3 weeks to go, Rick, we start to take a look now at the rankings, and they become more and more important. as we wind down the regular season and point towards tournament time. And we'll start on the Division IV girls side. You've got quite a team there in Division IV with Renaissance. They're undefeated, Rick.
Yeah, the Renaissance School of Springfield at 14-0. They're not ranked on Mass Live, and it's probably based upon the D4 type schedule. But Ware having another, boys and girls doing very well. Ware at 11-3, Putnam 8-5. Mount Everett, the team that you said a couple of weeks ago, watch out.
Right.
They're playing the South right now. They're going to have a very good record, and they could be very, very tough in Western Mass. Hopkins Academy at 10-5, and right under them, we got the McCann Tech Hornets at 9-5.
And my sleeper team at 6-6. They're not up there, but they're the defending Division IV champs. That's Munson. They play a tough schedule. They're 6-6, so they're looking to qualify. If they can get in, they can make some noise in that Division IV tournament. On the Division IV boys side, it stays pretty much the same. You look at them, the Drury Blue Devils, they deserve to be number one at 11-2. I know Ware is 13-1 and Pioneer 11-2. Of course, Pioneer and Drury are going to play coming up next week. That's going to be a heck of a game up at Drury. We're going to want to see that one. I think that's on the 6th of February.
It's on the 8th.
8th of
Yep.
February.
Great.
So
Yep.
you want to catch that one. And then you see that Paulo Freire team. So this is an interesting division. Drury on top, Rick, but there's some competition there.
Yeah, Drury on top, strength of schedule, Berkshire County playing in the north. Coach Reset said he said he's seen Ware at least once. Pioneer, 2 losses, one to Hoosick Valley early in the season, one last week to Frontier. Bay State, a team that I'll be covering tonight against the McCann Tech Hornets. And then Paulo Freire, of course, a team that we mentioned early in the season. It's a charter school that has been playing varsity ball for 7 years, but not competing in Western Mass. They've been competing in a different league. So their first year, that's why we're noticing them.
Sure.
But they've got some talent there.
Another team another division that we always think is probably the most competitive in Western Mass. That's the Division III boys, and you see a scramble in that division. I think you've got 5 teams here that have the potential to win this division. I think it's pretty much wide open.
Yeah, and again, ladies and gentlemen, if you watch the program on a fairly regular basis, you'll know that I've mentioned before that Narragansett, even though they don't play a Western Mass schedule, they're a Central Mass team, but the MIAA has put them with a few other teams from that Fitchburg, Winchendon area in Western Mass come playoff time. So we have to honor that and show them at 13-1. Savage, of course, 9-4. Wacona playing extremely good basketball. And again, they got knocked off last week by Taconic on Ed Lally night down there, but no shame in losing to the Taconic Braves that I think is the best Division II team in Western Mass.
And no real change here at Division III, but we do see moving up South Hadley and Drury coming up, and of course that should be a real dogfight there for the 4th and 5th position. Looks like the top 3 teams are pretty well locked in, Rick.
Yeah, we've been talking about the top 3 all the time. South Hadley, again, having a great year. Drury on a real roll right now. And, I really think Drury is going to win. could be up to 13 or 14 games, Tim. And Hampshire Regional took a little step back last week. Coach Amy Sears' team was on a roll, but lost a game against Wacona Coaches versus Cancer. So we'll have to see. But I still like those first 3 teams, and I'm going to say that right till the bitter end here.
Right. And our game of the week coming up this week, it's going to be Taconic, the Young Lady Braves going to Hoosick Valley to take on the Hoosick Valley Hurricanes in our high school game of the week, Rick.
Yeah, Taconic is a much improved team. Coach Matt Mickle, his kids, they were going to be very strong this year anyway, but he got a couple of kids that transferred from PHS over to Taconic, and they've really helped out. And they're doing really, really well. I mean, they're 11-2 overall. And they're 3-1 in the league. They're only lost to Hoosick Valley at home. And so these matchups between Taconic, Hoosick, and Wacona, those 3 teams are battling for the north right now. I still like Hoosick Valley, but that's going to be a whale of a ball game.
And Lexi Mercier is knocking on the door of 1,000 points. She's only 25 points away, so that might be the game when she gets it. We'll have to see. That's going to do it again for this week on High School Basketball Weekly. Thanks for tuning in, and of course, support your local high school basketball teams wherever they might be this year.
Good night, everybody.